Welcome to the show, Monique. I am so glad to have you here. You guys, we are in for a special treat. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Me too. So for those of you that are listening, Monique James is here joining us today. And she is the founder of Renegade Creative Media. She is also a confidence coach, and she did one of our courses. So if you are following up with us, we changed the game a little bit. We went from master classes to courses, and Monique so graciously did the first course here. And so today's conversation is going to be all about the course and benefits of the course and why you should take the course, and really great insight into some of the courses. Once you get in, you'll understand more. So Monique, let's start off a little bit. Tell us a little bit about you before we dive in.
Let's see. For the purposes of this conversation, I will say I am a questioner heart. Like at my core, I questions and usually ask questions that people are afraid to ask or aren't being asked for whatever reason. I've always been that person, that kid who I don't really tolerate like obstacles and challenges. Like I'm only gonna look at this obstacle for so long before I'm like, I need to figure out how to get through this, how to get around it, how to get over it. And so for me, like being able to start empowering myself with a question so that I can get to an answer, that's who I've always been. And I just bring that to my work. I didn't realize until adulthood, being in the military and things like that, that nature of mine to question is strategy at its core. It's, seeing a challenge and figuring out, how do I back myself away from this challenge toward a solution? And that nature has just kind of guided me. It guides me in my everyday life, in my relationship with my friends and with my loved ones and in my business. I just show up that way. That is who I am.
I think that is so powerful, and in business specifically. So if we think about small business owners, we usually start a business, especially as military spouses. Usually military spouses start a business because they found a pain point, usually for themselves. And they're like, oh my gosh, I don't want anybody else to go through this. For me, for example, I started AMSE. I started the Mil Spouse Creative because I couldn't find a place for military spouses who had small businesses that could support, empower, encourage, have resources, mentorship, all those things. So I created this organization, but nobody asked me to, right? Like nobody's out here asking the spouses to start these businesses with pain points. They have the pain point and they start it. What is interesting about what you just said is that we started, and I feel like a lot of times we quit asking questions that help us sell the product that we created, right? Either the product, the physical product, or the service that we've created. And I will say, when I was listening to your course, the very first, I think it was the first or second one, and it was talking about empathy, it really was a refresh and a mindset click. Like I knew it 4 years ago when I started, but it was a mindset refresh for me to say, wow, I forgot all these things, right? And it's easy to forget when you've already overcome it, right? In some capacity. And so for me, listening to this as a seasoned entrepreneur that has several types of businesses, it was an immediate refresh. Like, wow, I really needed to hear that I need to add empathy back into my marketing to reconnect with the spouses that were where I was 10 years ago. And so if you guys have not taken the course is called Heartbeat of Your Market. Unlock the Heartbeat of Your Market. And the course is broken up into 6 different bite-sized videos between 10 to 15 minutes long. It's also available on audio for those of you that need to do multiple things during your day. And it goes through an intro, NBA questions, inquisitive buying journey, emotional pulse points, aligned journey, marketing channels, and AI cheat code. So as we talk about those types of topics, I think it's important to remember what you said, which is we forget to ask the questions. It is that right there really is so powerful. So if you're listening to this, asking the questions and remembering, for me, where I was 10 years ago really got those wheels turning. And you discussed that, I think it's in video 2, right? No, video 1. It's actually the course intro.
Yeah, you're talking about the NBA questions, the never before
Yes.
asked questions.
Yes, the NBA questions.
Yeah, I think that's video 2. But yeah, and that's what it is. It's I think sometimes it's easy to forget to ask the questions because we get attached to the last experience, whether the last experience was a success. And then we think, oh, boop, I'm past that. I can move on to something else. I don't need to keep asking questions. Or even if the last experience was a fail, well, that was the wrong way to do it. I'm doing something else. Like both of those scenarios set us up to forget to go back to the foundation. And for me as a strategist, the questions cultivate the foundation because those answers need an invitation to show up. And that's what the questions are. And so for me, it's always about figuring out what are the new questions that I need to be asking so that I can get to new answers and then build from that. And yeah, we talked about that in module 2 of the course.
And what does NBA stand for those? That acronym, everybody was wild about it. They were like, oh my gosh, NBA, like they loved it.
NBA stands for never before asked. Again, I'm a military spouse. I am a veteran myself. So acronyms rule my life. So yeah, we know how to shorten things and, create our own language. And that runs through my business as well. I use acronyms a lot. I have created language that is specific to my brand and leveraging the military aspect because that is such a big part of me and a big part of how I show up and how I work with clients. So the acronyms, acronyms are peppered in there. But we all know, being military affiliated, once you learned and adopt what that acronym means, it now becomes a part of your lexicon. So yeah, NBA is never before asked.
And I feel like this is such a great foundation for anything, right? Like if you're launching a new product or service, if you are, adding a different type of funnel, like all of these questions, this is such a great acronym to have to be asking those questions. So I really love that. And you taught so many of us so many great things. So I think like the biggest takeaway for me from this entire course was the empathy and asking the questions. If you don't ask the questions, you're really just marketing to yourself, to me, at the end of the day, because you continue to just keep marketing and you're marketing from the capacity of your personal growth and not from the growth of the people that need your product or service. And I found that, it's like you're marketing to yourself. And I always say this all the time, like you are the foundation of your business, but your community and your clients are the ones who are going to continue to tell you what they need from you. So you have to listen by asking the questions. And great ways to ask the question are surveys, community discussion, one-on-one quick calls, things like that. So if you're stuck right now in your business, you need to be asking questions. Let's talk about another one that I really wanted to bring up, which is the emotional pulse points. Can you take us through that video?
Okay, so that one, if I remember right, I started that lesson giving a very real world example, something that anybody can relate to, of going into your favorite retail store with a list of things to buy and walking out of said favorite retail store with
a Target.
Yeah, exactly. Having bought nothing on your list, but you've spent significantly more than you plan to spend. And that putting ourselves in that environment and in that experience illustrates what the emotional pulse points are. We understand it as consumers. We get sucked into it all the time.
We do. We do.
For me as a marketer, one way that I love to help cement that understanding in the minds of other marketers is to remind them of what it feels like to be the customer. And once you can remember, I did leave out of there and I had spent $300 and I didn't need any of that stuff, but I wanted all of it. We understand that on a very visceral level. That's what that is. That's the tapping on those pulse points that every human comes with. We're born with these emotions that are wired in us. And when you can recognize it as a marketer, you can flip that. And you can infuse those same emotional triggers. And like I said in the module, with integrity. We're using our powers for
Yeah.
good here, but you can infuse your marketing with those emotional triggers to spark that, I need that
Yeah.
in your customers.
Yeah. And I feel like for me here at AMSE, that is something that we are continuously learning because
Mhm.
for every military spouse, this journey of entrepreneurship is so different. A lot of it stems from the same, which is like, not being able to find employment and feelings of like unworthiness. Those are the two big components that really help, spouses decide to start businesses. I really loved that you shared it. It was like pain and pleasure. That was
Mhm.
that those two were in there. I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. So turning on with integrity, like what is their pain, but also what is their pleasure? So sometimes we're thinking, what is their pain point? Pain point. Like that's all I hear. What is
Yes.
your pain point? What was your pain point, right? Like why did you start? This was my pain point, so I'm going to create this. But what is the pleasure? For me, it's like, I want to feel like I'm part of the community. I want to feel like it's, exclusive. I want to feel, welcomed and seen and heard and appreciated. And those are pleasure feelings. So
Yes.
I really loved how you added the pleasure because we're always thinking about the pain points, which is always negative.
And that's the challenge. That's the beauty of, thinking like a marketing strategist, is recognizing that every potential customer in your audience will not be motivated by pain,
Mm,
by you aggravating a pain. Some people aren't motivated. They won't be inspired to take action by running from something. Some consumers will be inspired to take action by desire and
yeah.
by moving towards something.
Yeah.
And the savvy marketer recognizes that both types of people exist in your audience, and you get to, again, infuse your marketing messages to speak to both,
Yeah.
because you know that some people, when you talk about their pain, they're going to run in the opposite direction because they want you to talk about their pleasure and what they want, so that they will understand that you understand what they want, and then you can give it to them.
Yeah, and that reminds me of like the luxury
Mhm.
social media. Like
Mhm.
people love luxury. Like I mean, every reel, every post that I see that's like luxurious, even things that I've posted that are, at a nice hotel or traveling or doing these things. Those are the things that I get the most content
Yes.
conversation because it's pleasure. It's showing people that I, as a business owner, have been able to do this. So now it's like, this is what you could do if you follow these things. Like if you join, if you connect, like these are opportunities that can happen along the way. So it reminds me of the luxury posting about luxury that gives
Yes.
you the connection. People want to connect with that because they're running towards that. So
Exactly.
I love
Exactly.
that. I feel like that's a really what is it called? Like not a trailblazing way, but also going against a grain where people are mostly always talking about the pain points as you're trying to launch a business. They're always asking, and you're saying, hey, what about the pleasure? Like, let's talk about happiness. How is this going to make them happy? How is this going to give them that end result that they truly desire in a positive way? So I really took a lot from that. And I know that our members did too. So the other one I wanted to talk about was because AI is big. Like 2023
Mhm.
was the year of AI everything. I feel like I got on that bandwagon kind of late, like in probably May. I was like, okay, I guess I'll try this AI stuff. But you talk about an AI cheat code. And so how do you think that that applies to, this marketing?
Oh, okay. We can talk forever about
It could be a
it.
whole nother podcast.
I know, right? We could talk forever. But for me, I again recognized that, for regardless of what level you're on in your business, DIY marketer, small team, executive with a marketing department, leveraging technology to help you do business better, more efficiently, more productively, in a faster, all of those things, it makes sense.
Mhm.
And so what I recognize as I jumped in on the, kind of quietly played around, learned about how to leverage it in every aspect of my business, from business operations to customer service, like every phase I wanted to figure out how to implement it in. But as a marketer, also leveraged and learned how to infuse it into my marketing operations. And then realizing, just like how you talked about at the top of this episode, when we solve our own problem, we recognize, oh, there are people like me who will have this same problem, who will be in this same position that I am in, or just learning how to get out of. And so I wanted to include that piece in with the entire course because it makes sense. It's relevant for where everybody, not just small business owners, not just entrepreneurs, it's where we are globally in this AI conversation, and particularly for entrepreneurs who are aspiring, startup, emerging, figuring out how to access and how to harness the power of this technology, even at their level. It just made sense. And so with that cheat code that I gave, I walked the entrepreneurs through prompt formula that comes directly from my playbook. Like that's one of my prompts, but teaching them how to leverage a tool like ChatGPT to get them an answer that is closer to what it is that they actually want. Because one of the things that I've heard a lot from entrepreneurs, from business owners who have been playing with it on their own is they're like, well, it just gives me cookie cutter outputs. And I say, yeah, because you're putting in cookie cutter inputs.
Right.
So teaching them how to, because we'd already done all of that other self-discovery work, customer discovery work, marketing discovery work, all of that gets poured into the tool so that the outputs that they get are 85% of what they're looking for. And then it just requires a little bit more editing and refining so that they can leverage it for their brands. But yeah, including that piece, it just made sense. I feel like the course wouldn't have been complete without that portion.
Yeah. And I feel like following up on what you were saying, when you do put it in, it may not give you exactly what you need. It gives you 85%, but I feel like it always kind of gives you ideas so you can improve it. So it's almost like starting at 50% versus zero to start something, whether it's a campaign, whether it's a marketing, whether it's email, whatever it is, it gives you that 85%. And then it gives you really the more ideas. So as you read it, as you're trying to compare it to like what you would have written originally, you will get to your 100% if you just do the process, which is all the 5 videos that dump you into the AI. So all of those 5 videos ahead of this one gives you all of the formula you need to plug into that formula, like all of the information. So yeah, it absolutely did make sense. If you're wondering what that formula is, you will have to take the course because it is amazing and it is very well thought out and it really will help you. So as we wrap up, I want to ask you, do you feel is the biggest takeaway, anybody who has not taken the course, or maybe the biggest takeaway you wanted the members of the course to get from this?
The biggest takeaway, if there was a thread that kind of runs through the course, but this is my approach to marketing strategy as a whole, is that it starts with you as the leader. Learning how to ask questions, whether those questions are directed at you or your team or your intended customers or your marketing activities, it calls up a level of self-awareness that I believe is a requirement for marketing that connects, for marketing that works. I think a lot of us, and it's not our fault. Culture, all of the marketing books, like we talked about, you mentioned earlier, it puts a lot of the attention and a lot of the responsibility on the customer, when I believe the responsibility is on us as the marketer. We are responsible. We have a higher level of stewardship to design our marketing messages in a way that the consumer can give us an easy yes. And so that thread, I think, runs through the entire course, because that's just a reflection of how I run my own business, how I challenge clients to change the way that they look at their marketing campaigns as a whole, is recognizing that it all reflects you. And so if you can get clear, when you can get clear, you can design your marketing with confidence. You can show up and talk about the things that you're doing. You can show up and create a sense of comfort in your intended customers. You can show up courageously and do things that you've probably never done before, but all with the intention of serving your audience. So yeah, I think that's probably the one common thing. It really is about getting clear on yourself, that
Yeah.
self-awareness, and allowing that self-awareness to guide you through the textbook pieces of a marketing strategy.
Yeah. Wow. This course absolutely changed a lot of some of the things we're going to be launching this year. So if you have not had a chance to check it out, you can access it inside the portal, connect there, ask questions. And we did do the coaching call at the end, which I felt as the person creating this entire change, I listen to my customer, right? I am very self-taught. As a business owner, I learned everything on my own. I don't have a business degree. I have a PR and comms degree. And me going through it really piqued in some curiosity.
Mhm.
And it really reminded me of why I'm doing the thing I do. One of the reasons we added the coaching at the end of it is because the biggest hurdle and question that we get from our members and comments is they have questions after the master classes. And so you'll come in and you'll teach this. You could have taught this as a master class, Monique. And, that would have been great. But then afterwards, people kept telling us they have questions, or they would come back and say, hey, do you have their email, or how can I connect, or tagging them in our Slack channel or in our community. And I started to see that common thread. And I said, you know what? These master classes are like cliffhangers. Like, it just hit me one day. I was like, it's like you give them just enough, that they're ready. And then it's like, you leave them hanging. And so that's why adding the coaching for me was more powerful, because it provided accountability, which is another thing that spouses say they need, is accountability. They need a place to ask their questions, because they're answering their own questions, but they're going through the journey. So they don't have all the answers, or they can't see from the outside looking in because they're inside. So this really allowed them to question what they were doing, back to the basics, and also allowed them to have a conversation with you. And I thought that was really powerful to add. So yesterday we had about 4 people join us for the course, 4 or 5 people join us and ask questions, and your coaching was spot on. Did you see a common thread in the questions as we were kind of going through the coaching session?
Yeah, the conversations were the wrestling that the entrepreneurs who got a chance to get on stage and ask their questions, the wrestling boiled down to being clear on what their offer is. I didn't talk about the offer piece or the offer development. That's a course that's coming up in the community, I know. But that in this course, the marketing process, the process I teach for customer discovery, won't work if you're not clear on what it is that you're selling.
Yeah.
And so that was the thing that I recognized, a common challenge with the struggles that the entrepreneurs during the call were talking about. They were struggling with figuring out, okay, how does this apply? That essentially was the question, was how does this apply? And for me, just kind of hearing, I'm really intuitive in that way. I can hear the question that they're asking, but hear what they're not saying.
Yeah.
And so from asking, well, what do you sell? Or, if you've got a podcast, what does the podcast helping you do? What is the goal for the podcast? Like, all of those types of questions really allowed them to recognize that they needed to get clarity on what is the foundational thing. Because you can't build anything with a shaky foundation. And so getting clear on what that foundation is. And in their case, it was the offer, the thing that they're selling, because we're business owners. So we're trying to sell some stuff, we try to sell. So what is the thing that they're selling? Because once they have that identified, then they can start to go through the process of asking those questions, discovering the emotional pulse points of their intended customer, aligning the messages to the marketing channels, and then leveraging AI to help take that up even another notch. But yeah, it really is about the clarity. The questions help you get clear, but you have to start from a place of at least knowing this is what I sell. And from that, you can use, the course to help you refine so that you can start marketing the thing that you're selling.
Yeah, that's what I noticed too, that kind of wrestling back and forth with what is it do I sell? And I feel like the questions that you asked provoked the thinking, like, what is it that I sell and why do I sell it? And I feel like that, even though it might have created a small amount of confusion within the entrepreneurs, I feel like that's what they needed so that they can get clear about what they do want to sell, because they weren't asking themselves those questions before, which is why this course is so powerful. And you're right, we are offering another course coming up in February. It's called Offer Cure, in partnership with Funnel Gorgeous, to get really specific on what you're offering. Because I think, like you said, that was a common thread. And I feel like because the questions were questions they weren't asking or not even thinking to ask, it provoked almost that confusion. Well, what is it that I'm selling? Who is my customer? Why am I selling them? How am I going to sell to them? And how do I apply the AI if I don't even know which way I'm sending them? And so for some people, they're not necessarily selling anything. Maybe they're providing an advocacy too. So this, applies if you are even offering an advocacy that you want to reach people in a certain space. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to, we all want to be making money, but sometimes we have different things that can lead us to making money and that that can help them. And by offering these pain points and solving them and these pleasure points, all coupled in with everything you did, I think it's just magical. Like, really, if you're struggling in any capacity with any branding or launching or marketing or questioning anything or pivoting in any way, this course is for you. It is for you. So as we wrap up, Monique, tell us if you have anything special coming up that our members can connect with you and where they can find you to learn more from you.
So since we've been talking, just about the timeliness of this course really coming at the beginning of the year, I think it's a great opportunity for a reset. And I've been going through the same thing in my own business, military family. We moved last year, and naturally that move prompted a relook of a lot of things that I was doing. So I'm excited just about new stuff. Just the new energy just feels really good. So I will be rolling out, I'll be doing quarterly virtual trainings. I love teaching. And so I'm getting back to that I'm teaching at least one free virtual training quarterly, free live virtual training quarterly, and adding new courses for people who are just ready to just jump in and start learning so that they could start elevating their marketing strategy, those different elements of their marketing strategy. So I'll be rolling those out. People can find me on LinkedIn. My name, Monique James, MBA. Connect with me there, or Instagram.com/Monique James, same thing. But I'm excited. I think it's important to call out that we're all constantly evolving. And because we as leaders are evolving, it only makes sense that our businesses reflect our evolution. And so for anybody listening, I want to encourage them to not to resist the evolution, like be willing to admit that you're in the land of confusion. Admit that, because once you can acknowledge it, then you can say, oh, I don't have to stay here. I can start asking new questions to get out of the land of confusion and into the land of clarity. So be open, be flexible, be willing to endure the process. Confusion is a part of the process, but confusion does not have to be the destination. So definitely, if you're not in AMSE, I would encourage you to get in AMSE. I've been excited to see the feedback from the members who are taking the courses, who've already been watching videos and asking new questions. That I get a kick out of that, because I get to pop in and be like, oh yes, this was that. Or Monique, how did you do this? Oh, this was that. So that's been really fun just to have that element included in this new version of the community. So find me all over social. I'm always out there talking about empathy or intention and all of those things that traditional marketers leave out of the books. But I believe they are tremendously important to infuse, to acknowledge, and to allow to guide us as we develop marketing strategies that allow our brands to be sticky.
Well, this has been such an encouraging podcast for anybody listening. I know it was for me and my team, and I'm just so grateful that you were the one kicking it off. Like, we've set the bar high, y'all. If you have not taken this course, Unlock the Heartbeat of Your Market, a tactical guide to customer discovery with Monique James, you can watch it exclusively or listen to it exclusively inside the MilSpouse. You can listen to it exclusively in the Association of Military Spouse entrepreneurs in our platform, and you can go to amsemembers.com to join. Monique, this has been a really great, insightful, encouraging, and really refreshing podcast, refreshing to the new year. And I feel like you just had so much encouragement for us. So like she said, everybody, if you're new in business or you're seasoned, this is always a great place to just refresh, get a reboot on reevaluating what you're doing and who you're doing it for. And it'll really give you a sense of reviving really your business. Because sometimes I feel like we get stuck. So this was a great way to start the year. So thank you so much for joining me and being a part of everything we're doing here at AMSE and connecting with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me as a part of the community, allowing me to be my full self. We love it. Self. I appreciate it.
We love it, and we love you. So you guys, talk to you later, and we will be following up with some show notes.